Hey folks, my name is Dave. Welcome to our shop here at NTD Racing, where over the last week or so I've put out 4 videos on the Langmuir Systems CrossFire XR. Receiving it, what you get with the package, putting it together, and then also making the first cuts. This is kind of the last video for that little series where I'm making a couple modifications to make the table fit better in my shop. Before we go any further, I'm going to ask if you like what you see here, please consider hitting the like and subscribe button below, leaving a comment, and also ringing the bell for notification of future episodes. It definitely helps us out. So specifically what I did on this table is I changed the water table and its drainage system a little bit. I really think you're going to like what I did there. And then also move the computer. What I'm really going to do for you is provide some links. So just in case you want to do the same modifications, you'll know where to get the parts. If you're interested in any of the things I mentioned in this video, check out the description below for a link, or also go to www.ntdracing.com. You will also find a link there in case you're interested in the Crossfire Pro or the Crossfire XR, where you'll find a discount on the Crossfire Pro. Let's go ahead and get to this modification. Let's take a look at the parts I'm going to use. I found these in one of my kits there for all my irrigation system. I can show you where I got them, but about the barb here is just over 0.64 inches. So I'll use that. It's a 1/2 inch thread, so I found these on Amazon. These are decorative, they're not for plumbing uses, but remember the pressures that we're working with are super low, so this isn't like you're plumbing your house. This is just for the water table. What I'll do is I will use some of the extra adhesive that I had from the build. I'm going to put adhesive on here, and then I'm going to put this on the bottom of the table. Use these number 10 24 screws that I had with some, not lock nuts, these are stainless. Anyways, these will go through the top of the table and bolt on the bottom and sandwich that adhesive up to the table. Once that's sandwiched up there, I'll put adhesive on these screws. I'll screw these into the bottom until they press all the way up against the table. And then what I have is this FlexZilla hose. I have 50 feet of this. I can put a link in the description, also at www.ntdracing.com, for where I got all this stuff. And now this thing has a 1/2 inch inner diameter, and that'll fit nicely over that 0.64, and you can see it'll probably make a pretty good seal on there. I think it's going to do a good job of holding the water in there and make it quick to evacuate the water out of the table. Let's take a look at the water table, and I'll try to explain what I'm trying to fix. When you get this and you put it together, it comes in 4 sections, and then you glue those sections together. And the issue is there's one drain over here, and there's another drain over on this side. What that means is as you drain it, water gets trapped in these 2 center sections. And the reason that is because when you glue them together, it ends up having about this 1/2 inch lip right here, which allows water to get trapped in this side as you drain out that one. So my plan is, in these sections here that I clean, is I'm going to go ahead and put one of those fittings on each one of those 4 sections, such that it'll drain out each one all the way down to the metal individually. All right, here are some of my lessons learned while putting this thing together. First off, let's talk about bolt length. I was using 1 inch long bolts, and I think you can use 1/4 I think you can use 10/24. It doesn't matter, it just needs to hold that thing together. But I would go with about a 3/4 inch bolt or less, maybe a 1/2 inch. I was using some nylock, so you want to make sure it doesn't come loose or something like that. But after that, just make sure I got enough adhesive on there such that it's spread out through the bolts and also all the way around that circle. I use a little bit, maybe too much. It gets a little messy, but I'd rather use more as opposed to less, because I wanted to make sure it surrounded that bolt. From there, I cut the FlexZilla hose to length and fit it over the fittings. And then it's time to fill the thing up with water and make sure that it'll hold. All right, that's enough water in there for right now. We'll go ahead and let it sit there for a while and then come back and check for leaks. So far, it looks good. Okay, everything's holding water nicely. Let's go ahead and look underneath the table and make sure we don't have any drips or anything like that before we go and drain this thing. All right, here's a look underneath, and just for reference here, this is the end, and I just put a bolt in the end of that thing. It's a little over a 1/2 inch bolt. I cut the head off, or the end of it off, and I just plugged it in there to plug the water. Besides that, everything else under here is holding water perfectly and no leaks. Let's go ahead and do a drain test. All right, to drain this, I'm just going to disconnect this from my faucet, and it should probably start leaking out right away because it's There we go, the water starts coming out right away. I'm gonna put this somewhere where all the water can drain. All right, let's take a look at the results. I think it did great. I mean, most of the water is completely out of all the chambers of the table. It was really interesting, however, how it all drained out. So it all drained together until it got down to these ribs, and then it siphoned the rest of the water out of here. So there was some suction pulling the water out of here by the siphon through the hose. Once that suction was gone, then it no longer sucked the water out anymore. And what was crazy was that the water from the other three chambers started to refill this chamber, and then it really drained slowly because you can see there's just really very little head pressure, you know, half an inch or something like that. So from there, it took about an hour to get all of the water to drain out of the table. But I think that the end results are awesome. You just leave the thing draining and then come back an hour after lunch or something like that. And it's pretty much completely empty. There is a little bit of water left in here, but that's going to dry up overnight. This thing will be completely dry by tomorrow morning. As far as like hose management, you can see I have the FlexZilla hose back over here. I made this little bracket out of just some aluminum to hang that thing over there neatly. And then I'm just going to do a little bit more hose management back over here with my air hoses and also my air dryer. If you haven't watched, I have a video of me using the single stage DeWalt compressor with this Harbor Freight air dryer. Total game changer for my setup, and I'm totally happy with it. All right, it's time to get to the other part of this modification. So now I'm going to move the touchscreen computer from the side of the XR to on one of my tables. So I'm going to jump into CAD right here and do some CAD to get the mount design. Now I will put the full version of the CAD at the end of this video if you want to watch me fumble all the way through how I made this mount in Fusion 360. Here, however, is me cutting it out on the CrossFire XR, which is just doing amazing and really cutting some good cuts. If you want to see my most recent cuts, I re-edited the CrossFire XR versus the CrossFire Pro video. Go check out that video, and at about the 17-minute point, you'll see some of the cuts that I made where it's really, I think, getting tight. The cut quality, I think, is just perfect. Check out that video. I think you'll be impressed. Let's take a look at the computer stand. I'm using the old stand that I had for my CrossFire Pro, and I just modified it a little bit. This Husky cabinet that I found, I got it for like $69 from Home Depot. You might be able to find it again. I've heard that people have had a hard time finding the same one. When I saw that deal, I bought 3 of them. Anyway, it mounts up here to the pegboard, and I think it does a pretty good job of cleaning everything up and making a space underneath for me. I might go ahead and get a full-size keyboard and a mouse to use with the computer. And then as far as mounting my razor weld, I have it mounted back here. I just made like a little perch back there for the razor weld. I just need to get an air hose to run that thing. To get this thing over here, you'll check out in my description below, I did have to get 2 cables. I had to get a longer cable to go from the control box. So it's a 10-foot power cable to go from the control box all the way around, and it plugs in over here to the outlet. And then also for the USB, basically a printer cable to go from the USB into the control box right over here. I had to get a 10-foot one of those. Again, in the description below, check those things out. Anyway, that's how all that went together, and I like those 2 mods. I think it makes this thing fit just a whole lot better in my shop, and basically opens up this space right here, which I have to walk through with pieces of metal as I go to my bandsaw and that kind of stuff. So really happy with it. All right, that will be the last of the build series for the CrossFire XR. And from here, it's time to put this table to work as we build our next truck, Honcho 2, which should look a little bit more like a trophy truck. We do use some affiliate links to help us cover the cost of our truck. So if you liked any of those products and want to use it on your own table, you'll find a link in the description below, or you can go again to www.ntdracing.com and check out all the stuff that we have there on our page. Again, one more plug, please consider hitting like and subscribe, ringing the bell for notification of future episodes. Leave a comment if there's something else you want to see. We'll see you on the next episode. Take care of yourself. All right, let's start making the mount that we're going to use for the new screen on my toolbox. So here's me fumbling through a little bit of CAD. So I want to sketch as always, I want to sketch on the X and Y plane. I'll pick a center origin rectangle here, and this thing's going to be 4.25 by 10 inches. All right, and then what I'm going to do is I've got two square hole patterns that I've got to do on this thing, and I'm going to separate these. I'm going to hit, actually, I'm going to separate these by, it's going to be 4.5 inches on top. So that makes it 5.5 inches on the bottom. Let's go all the way across. And then I'm going to try and pick the center origin here, and I'm going to go straight up. And this should be 2.25 inches. Should find the center of that. That's going to be the center of that bolt pattern. And I'm going to do one more down here in the center of this one. Should be at 2.75. And actually it looks like I can probably go a little further. About 3. There we go. That's pretty close. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead back to the center rectangle. And I'm still on construction lines. And the bolt pattern that for the mount for the computer is about 3.25 inches between all the bolts. So 3.25 by 3.25. And that's where all those are going to go. And then the pattern for the pegboard, usually about 1 inch between the pegs. I think it's the standard there. So I'm going to do another one of those center rectangles. And I used to have this in a hotkey. I don't know where it went, but anyway, wrong one. Rectangle, center rectangle. And I'm going to just say 3 by 3. And that's where those are going to go. And then now I'm just going to put some holes in all those. And 1/4 inch bolts are going through there, but I'm going to put them at 0.35, and that'll give me the ability to kind of wiggle those things around before I tighten them up, just so I can make them square. It doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm going to go back to turning construction lines off because I want these things to cut. Hit the C hotkey and then pick these things, these centers here, and 0.35, and then center 0.35. Eight of these holes. I'm just glad I don't have to drill them. That's what's nice about having a plasma cut. I swear it saves me in drill bits. $1 bazillion in drill bits. I hate drill bits. If anyone has a good technique for sharpening drill bits on a budget, I'm all ears. Anyway, there's that. So I might give myself a couple, like a little nicks right here in the metal, just so that I can line it up on my press brake when I go to cut those. So what I might just do is add just some little 0.2 circle right there, and then a 0.2 circle right there, and that's going to put like a little nick right in the corner, and that'll just help me line up on my press brake when I go to do that. It's just for that. It'll be hardly noticeable. Wrong side. Trim that again. There. I think the last thing to do is round off these corners a little bit and make it look nice and soft. Let's say a 0.4. I guess that's going to look good. I'm going to pick all 4 of the corners. There we go. All right. I think that's going to look good. I'm going to extrude this. Oh, no, I got to hit enter and get done with that first. All right, I got those. Hotkey E, and extrude that part. And let's say 0.125. All right, there we go, 0.125. Boom, there's our part. We're going to go ahead and cut that out. Go to manufacturer, setup. All right, I always pick that top point for my box points. Let me give this thing a name. Computer mount. All right. All right, so for cutting, I have the Razor Weld 45 And I'm now using a machine torch, and I run a whole bunch of test pieces through. I'm still trying to dial this in. It isn't perfect. If you see my last video, you see I had a little bit of nicks on it because I usually don't cut for making things pretty, but in this, you know, I want to start kind of cutting to make things look good, especially if people are watching my cuts. Anyway, so this is 1/8 inch still, or 11 gauge. So I was cutting at 90 inches per minute, and that machine torch just seems to be cutting a little bit faster. I'm going to do 80 inches per minute on the entry, and I was just kind of testing some different things there. And then on this, I'm going to go 90 degrees, and that should be good. Lead out, and I want it to enter all the way down here. There we go, and let's see if that cuts all the holes. Boom, it hits them all. All right, go to the G code, and then now the pierce delay. I had that up at 0.65. I was messing with that because I was getting some nicks on the entry and the exit. And I guess that the CrossFire XR does its pierce delay differently than the CrossFire Pro. And I'm actually going to decrease this down to 0.3, see how it works. Keep working to try to make this thing a little bit better. So 0.3 on that, everything else should be good. I'm going to say post that. I'm going to save that right there. All right, let's go downstairs and cut it out.